Hello everyone, I'm Susan. At 33, I had already endured my fair share of heartache in love. My first marriage ended in disappointment, painful enough that I promised myself I would never again lose sight of my own worth or let anyone diminish my peace. I embraced healing as my mission, therapy, journaling, rediscovering passions I had long set aside. Slowly but surely, I began to piece myself back together. So, when I met Stephen, my second husband, I felt as though life was finally giving me a second chance. He was kind, attentive, and thoughtful in ways I hadn't thought possible. We shared laughter that came effortlessly, late-night talks that stretched into dawn, and a vision for a future that seemed perfectly aligned. After years of struggle, I finally believed I had found my true partner. But then there was Carolyn, Stephen's mother. From the very beginning, her presence hovered like a shadow over our relationship. She scrutinized my words at family dinners, questioned my choices with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, and often tried to sway Stephen with her opinions about how we should live our lives. At first, I chalked it up to overprotective motherly love, but as time passed, her involvement revealed itself to be constant interference. She wasn't just offering advice, she was attempting to insert herself into the very fabric of our marriage. And one of the clearest examples of this came when she began making jokes about joining us on our honeymoon. At casual family barbecues, Carolyn would laugh while saying things like, "Oh, imagine me sipping champagne with you two on the beach. I'd make a great photographer for your honeymoon pictures." Or, if Susan ever gets tired, "Don't worry, Stephen, I'll happily take her place by your side." Everyone else laughed along, brushing it off as harmless teasing. I forced myself to smile too. But deep inside, I sensed there was something more serious beneath her words. And then, the moment that removed all doubt arrived, on my wedding day. The dressing room was filled with the fragrance of roses and the sound of bridesmaids chattering as they adjusted their gowns. My heart was beating fast, both from nerves and joy. I was moments away from walking down the aisle to marry the man of my dreams. Then, without warning, the door swung open. Carolyn entered, her presence cutting through the room like a blade. Her eyes locked onto mine with unsettling intensity. "Susan, I need to talk to you," she said firmly. The chatter around us fell quiet. My bridesmaids glanced nervously at each other before slipping out, sensing the tension. I forced a smile, determined to keep the joy of the day alive. "Of course, Carolyn, what's on your mind?" She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "How do you really feel about all this? Are you truly happy?" Her words hit me like a jolt. For a moment, I wondered if this was concern or interrogation. Gathering my composure, I replied warmly, "Yes, Carolyn, I couldn't be happier. Stephen is everything I've ever hoped for, and today marks the start of our life together." Her eyes softened briefly, but then, as if she couldn't help herself, she leaned in even closer and whispered, "Actually, about the honeymoon, I've decided to come along. It'll be a surprise for Stephen. Let's keep this between us." I blinked, stunned. At first, I thought I'd misheard her. "Wait, are you serious? You want to come with us on our honeymoon?" She nodded matter-of-factly. "Of course. I've always dreamed of seeing the world in that way, and I've been with Stephen through every milestone of his life. Why should this be different? It'll be a bonding experience for us all." I stared at her, speechless. The audacity of her words was staggering. The honeymoon, the sacred time for a newly married couple, was not hers to share. Taking a slow breath, I steadied my voice. "Carolyn, I respect your love for Stephen, but this is our time. Our honeymoon is a private journey meant for just the two of us. I need you to respect that boundary." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I only want what's best for Stephen. I thought you'd understand that." I didn't waver. What's best for Stephen is a strong, healthy marriage that begins with space for us to build our own memories. It was one of the hardest conversations I had ever had, but I knew it was necessary. That was the day I drew a line in the sand, hoping Carolyn would understand. But she didn't. A few days later, as Stephen and I prepared to leave for our honeymoon, my phone buzzed. It was her. I hesitated, but answered. Her cheerful voice rang through the line. "Susan, dear, I've decided to join you and Stephen on your honeymoon. Isn't that exciting?" I closed my eyes, frustration flooding through me. "Carolyn, we've already talked about this. Our honeymoon is for Stephen and me. This isn't something you can just invite yourself to. Oh, don't be dramatic, she dismissed with a laugh. I've already booked my ticket. Switzerland, right? I couldn't get on the same flight, but I'll meet you there. Her words were both infuriating and oddly liberating, because at that very moment, I realized something. I didn't have to play her game. If Carolyn insisted on crossing boundaries, then I would have to teach her, firmly, that every action has consequences. And that was when the idea began to form. Transformation. That was the word echoing in my head as I sat with the phone in my hand, staring at Carolyn's name still glowing on the screen after our last call. Transformation, because I wasn't going to fight her the way she expected. I wasn't going to engage in another exhausting tug of war. I was going to change the game. I had already told her firmly that our honeymoon was not her playground. Still, she had brushed aside my words, clinging stubbornly to her ridiculous plan to tag along. It was clear, logic wouldn't work. Begging wouldn't work. Boundaries, at least in her world, were just suggestions. So, I crafted a different plan, one born from equal parts desperation and mischief. Masking my frustration with a calm tone, I said, "Actually, Carolyn, there's been a little misunderstanding. We're not going to Switzerland after all. Stephen and I are headed to New Zealand." There was a sharp gasp on the other end of the line. For a moment, I almost felt guilty. Almost. "Oh my, I must have misunderstood," she exclaimed, her words tumbling out in a flurry. Yes, I'll need to change my flight right away. Thank you for letting me know, Susan." "Of course," I replied smoothly. "Yes, you'll want to change that ticket to Auckland, and I'll admit, last-minute flight changes can be expensive, but I know you'd do anything for Stephen." It was subtle, but the hook was set. I could almost hear her fingers tapping nervously against her credit card. What Carolyn didn't know, and would soon discover, was that Stephen and I were never going anywhere near New Zealand. Our destination was Switzerland, a place I had been dreaming of for years. I ended the call with a polite farewell and, once the line went silent, allowed myself the smallest of triumphant smiles. For now, at least, our honeymoon was safe. The next morning, as our plane descended into Switzerland, relief gave way to awe. Snow-dusted peaks stretched endlessly across the horizon, like jagged crowns against a pale blue sky. Geneva unfolded below us, a city brimming with old-world charm and cosmopolitan life. Stephen squeezed my hand as the wheels touched down. His eyes were bright with excitement. "Susan, look at this view. Can you believe we're actually here? It's even more beautiful than I imagined." I smiled, my own chest swelling with wonder. "I know. It feels like stepping into a fairy tale. I can't wait to see it all." The hotel we had chosen, a stately yet cozy retreat in the heart of Geneva, welcomed us with polished wood floors, sweeping chandeliers, and the scent of fresh flowers. Every detail radiated intimacy, the kind of place where whispered conversations and slow dances belonged. "This hotel is incredible," Stephen said, running his hand along the carved banister as though he couldn't believe it was real. "You nailed it, Susan. Perfect choice." "I wanted this trip to be everything we dreamed of," I replied softly, tucking my arm through his. "Just us, no interruptions." And for a time, it was perfect. We wandered hand in hand through cobblestone streets, pausing to taste Swiss chocolate so rich it melted like velvet on the tongue. We gazed at the grandeur of Chateaubriand Palace, strolled along the glistening waters of Lake Geneva, and let the soaring Alps frame our laughter like a living postcard. Every step, every kiss, felt like the start of something sacred. But perfection rarely lasts. That evening, as Stephen slipped into the shower, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Carolyn's name flashed across the screen. I hesitated, my heart tightening. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Hello, Carolyn," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. Her voice was chipper. "Delighted, Susan, dear. I'm about to board my plane to Auckland. Isn't that thrilling? Soon we'll all be together." I closed my eyes, pinching the bridge of my nose. She had actually done it. She had changed her flight. The absurdity was almost too much. Still, I forced cheer into my voice. "That's wonderful, Carolyn. We're so excited. The oceanfront hotel is just stunning. You won't believe the harbor views. Oh, and the beaches, absolutely unforgettable." She hummed with satisfaction. I knew you'd come around. This trip will give Steven and me so much quality time. And of course, you'll be there too. A bonding experience for all three of us. Of course, I murmured, barely resisting the urge to roll my eyes. It's going to be unforgettable. She promised to call once she landed in Auckland, completely oblivious to the truth. As I hung up, a spark of glee flickered inside me. The image of her stepping off a plane halfway across the world, searching fruitlessly for us, was too delicious. Still, beneath the mischief, guilt began to gnaw. Steven emerged from the bathroom, steam following him, and caught my distracted look. "What's wrong?" he asked, his expression soft with concern. The weight of my secret suddenly felt too heavy. I couldn't build a marriage on half-truths, not even ones designed to protect us. "Steven," I said quietly, sitting on the edge of the bed, "there's something I need to tell you." He frowned, towel draped over his shoulders. "You're scaring me. What is it?" "It's your mom," I admitted, my words tumbling out. "She was serious about joining us on our honeymoon. She wouldn't let it go. So, I told her we were going to New Zealand. She's actually on her way there right now." For a moment, Steven just stared. His silence was unbearable. Then, to my shock, he burst into laughter. Wait, you told her New Zealand?" He doubled over, holding his stomach as the sound echoed through the room. I blinked. "You're not mad?" "Mad? No. Relieved," he said between chuckles. "Susan, you're brilliant. Do you know how exhausting it's been having her meddle in everything? You just gave us the best gift, a honeymoon free of drama." I exhaled, tension draining from my shoulders. "I just didn't want you to think I was being manipulative." He leaned down, kissing my forehead gently. "You protected us. That's what matters. And honestly, I can't wait to see the look on her face when she realizes we're not in Auckland." We laughed together, the sound mingling with the city's distant bells. For the first time since Carolyn's interference began, I felt truly free. Our honeymoon was ours again, and as Steven and I embraced beneath the glow of Geneva's lights, I knew this small victory was only the beginning of learning how to protect our love from outside storms.